When we think of Princess Diana, we usually picture the glamorous, beloved icon, but the reality of her life began far from a fairy tale. Her family, the Spencers, were deeply entrenched in the British aristocracy. She was born right here at Park House, a property located directly on Queen Elizabeth's private Sandringham estate. Yet inside those walls, royal neighbors and immense wealth couldn't buy peace. The home was defined by constant quarreling and a pervasive sense of fear. This environment was no accident. The British aristocracy's obsession with a male heir acted as a systemic poison that shattered a young girl's life. Proximity to the crown offered no protection against domestic trauma. In Diana's case, that high-status world was the source of it. On July 1st, 1961, the day Diana was born, her mother, Frances, looked at her newborn daughter with outright fear and anxiety, rather than joy. Frances had already given birth to 2 girls, and a subsequent boy had died shortly after birth. John Spencer strictly required a healthy boy to serve as the heir to his massive legacy and wealth. The parents accepted the infant without affection, initially failing to even give her a name. They were entirely unprepared for a 3rd girl. Diana entered the world carrying an unearned burden, a disappointment to tradition. John Spencer weaponized his disappointment. He blamed the lack of a male heir entirely on what he considered the biological faults of his wife. Frances endured clinical humiliation, forced to visit multiple clinics to be biologically examined for her failure to produce a boy. The tension frequently crossed into physical violence. John's anger toward Frances became a permanent fixture of the household. Diana's earliest memories consisted of hiding behind doors, watching in fear as her father physically struck her mother. The rigid demand for a male heir functioned as the engine for the generational trauma and physical abuse saturating the Spencer home. Just before Diana turned 3, the agonizing wait seemed to end with the birth of her younger brother, Charles. The birth received the highest level of royal validation, with Queen Elizabeth herself acting as the boy's godmother. But the happiness was hollow. John Spencer's abusive habits returned quickly, proving that the birth of an heir could not fix a broken marriage. Damaged by years of conflict, Frances began an affair. In 1967, she abruptly left the estate without her children. The patriarchal system finally got exactly what it demanded, but the brutal process of acquiring it left the family destroyed. Following a 1969 divorce, the court awarded full custody of the children to their father. Diana and Charles would spend their evenings waiting at the doorstep, hoping their mother would return to the house. Weekends with their mother offered brief reunions, but they were always followed by agonizing goodbyes that etched deep abandonment issues into Diana's mind. Diana and Charles became emotional collateral, trapped in a massive, unstructured estate with a father who won custody but provided no actual parenting. Life on the estate lacked any maternal guidance. Diana's older sisters were often away at school, and when they were home, they rarely included her. This isolation forced 6-year-old Diana into a role known as parentification. In the absence of a mother, she began looking after her younger brother's needs. Assuming full responsibility for her brother's needs became Diana's primary survival mechanism in a household otherwise devoid of warmth. This forced self-reliance defined her character. The same empathy and nurturing spirit she would eventually offer the world grew from the vacuum of her own childhood, the instincts of a little girl who learned to provide the care she was never given.